This is Mornings on 702 ABC Radio Sydney.
Now, we were talking about work stress earlier on. If you are looking for a break, perhaps venturing into the great outdoors, a bit of fresh air would be good. Down in the snowy mountains, well, up really, technically down the map, but up the it's higher. We've got a brand new attraction that's just ready in time for the Christmas break. The Snowies Alpine Walk spans more than 50 kilometres in total, so you're not going to be able to do it in one day, but, a couple of days, a few days, depending on fitness. Get a lot of fresh air, be really good for you. Caro Ryan is a seasoned bushwalker and outdoors advocate whose Instagram handle is lots of fresh air, so committed, and she's walked almost all of the Snowies Alpine Walk. Good morning.
Good morning, James. How you going?
Yeah, very good, thank you. So this new Snowies Walk goes from where to where?
It's 56 k's. You said just over 50, yeah, and it kicks off in Guthega, getting up nice and high up towards Kosciuszko, does a beautiful big loop around the main range walk, and then back down through Charlotte's Pass into Perisher and then down to Bullocks Flat.
That sounds good. There's been walking trails around there before, haven't there? But how much of this that's just open is new, and how much of it is kind of fixed up a bit?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I don't have those kind of details to hand, but you're right. So a bunch of this will feel a bit familiar to people, which is great. So they've made use of existing tracks and then and actually a really old track as well, which is that last section which has just reopened from Perisher down a really big steep hill all the way down to Bullocks Flat. So, yeah, for instance, the main range, that loop up there from Charlotte's Pass up around the Blue Lake, taking in Kosciuszko, our highest peak, and that has been open for many, many years. Certainly had some upgrades and stuff like that, but there's one of my favourite sections is the one from Charlotte's Pass to Perisher. And it sort of takes you back along, if you're maybe a cross-country skier, you might be familiar with some of that route, but it takes you sort of along this edge where you get to look down over the Thredbo River and down sort of towards Jindabyne and sort of taking in views from Porcupine Rocks that you might never have actually seen before.
Oh, that sounds good. And so you've done almost all of it. Have you, in bits, or did you, camp out or what?
Yeah, in bits. And that's kind of how it's designed, is to be a 4-day walk in bits. So the first bit is Guthega to Charlotte's Pass, and you're following alongside the river, absolutely beautiful through snow gums, amazing amounts of flora there. So a lot of that is actually on raised boardwalk. So that's to protect some of those really precious alpine habitats. So it's a gentle uphill all the way to Charlotte. That's day one. Day two, you do that beautiful main range loop going around, I think it's 22 kilometres that second day, and that's the hardest of the days. That's graded 4 on the Australian Walking Track grading system. And then day three...
Sorry, when you say graded 4, what does that mean? You got to be at least 4 to do it?
Yeah, well, I reckon there are some 4-year-olds who'd be absolutely up for it. But so the Australian Walking Track grading system, it's a series of 5 different levels. Because when people say, oh, is it hard, is it easy, is it medium, that's all pretty subjective, right? So there's this great system. You can check it out on the National Parks website. There's 5 different levels. 1 is wheelchair accessible, and 5 is you need to be pretty seriously hardcore navigator, first aid, all that kind of thing. So most of the Snowies Alpine is grade 3, but there is a grade 4 section, some bushwalking experience for sure. Yeah, and a good bit of fitness.
And that's the second bit from Charlotte's Pass to where do you end up that day if you're doing it in 4 days?
Yeah, you come back to Charlotte's Pass. So it's that beautiful loop around the main range.
Oh, okay.
So up at the highest point. So it is a section. You don't actually camp on the track. You don't stay on the track. So it's designed as these section days, and then each night you go back to your accommodation or you go back to your campsites, and then you need to transfer back onto the track that day.
Right. Yeah. Day 3?
Day 3 is that beautiful Charlotte's Pass to Perisher. Like I said, the most amazing alpine meadows that you walk through. And the track there is these sort of stone pavement that they've laid using some of the beautiful local granite and stone from the area. And it takes you through porcupine rocks. And like I said, the best way to describe it is meadows, like alpine meadows of wildflowers and snow gums through beautiful stands of snow gums.
Oh, wow.
And those views down over to the Thredbo River and down towards Jindabyne. And also you get to sort of walk along and see the main range up to your whichever way you're walking. You get to see it over to the side. So there's beautiful peaks like Mount Twynham, and you might even see Mount Tate on a good day, and Kosciuszko, and all those sort of things laid out before you. It's kind of like you're walking past this giant panorama. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about this, and the part that I'm excited about, is that it sort of gives a summer view of places that most people would only sort of see in winter, those cross-country skiers and things like that. But it's also into those villages. So places like Sniggins and Charlotte's and Guthega, a lot of them tend to have a lot of their, people coming through in wintertime. But this is a way of getting, visitors and getting tourists to come and see what these places are like in summer, and even, head up some of the accommodation in those places, and maybe some, restaurants and hospo, that kind of thing as well. So sort of seeing a different season to the mountains, really.
Lovely. So day 3, Charlotte's Pass to Perisher. Then day 4 feels like it's going to be uphill initially.
Oh, it's going to be more the down. So this is the big down. We're actually heading back down towards the Thredbo River, so down to Bullocks Flat. Yeah,
but not along the road, section. Surely.
No, this is apparently it's a very old track that used to have one of the very early, and so I know someone's going to correct me on this, but that's fine. I think it's the old chairlift or an old tow bar or something like that. It was a way of getting from the tops back down to the river long before some of the modern stuff, one of those old chairlifts. So that's long gone, but this is a route underneath those old poles, and it was like I think a bit of an access trail for maintenance and things at one stage. But that's sort of been upgraded, and that is the section that's now open. And yeah, it's a big steep down with a big switch back in between, like a big zig and then a big zag. And so the quads will definitely feel it that way, but you get back down to the bottom and then that's the end. And, get your accommodation, maybe head off for a well-deserved kombucha or beer to celebrate, and taking the best of the Snowies.
So, Caro, there's a number of people who are quite excited about this, but also concerned about accommodation and, what they do if they end somewhere different from where they might have left their car and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things about this walk. So you do need to sort of do some planning beforehand for your logistics. So because unless you're going to be staying and hitting up some of the accommodation, like you could stay in Guthega. There's definitely accommodation there. You could stay in Charlotte. You could stay in Thredbo. And national parks have got some of their own accommodation as well. There's also campsites. But to actually get from the start of each day into the end, you need to have some prearranged transport for that. So there are some local transfers. So some local businesses are jumping into that sort of gap there, which is good. Or you could be with a bunch of mates and you could have 2 cars and do some car shuffles at the start and end of each day. I think there's 3 different options at the moment for actually doing a guided experience. So let someone else do all that planning, let someone else do all the food and the accommodation, and just, pay a generous fee to let someone else do all that work and also do the guiding, and maybe give you some of that interp and that insight into that beautiful landscapes and habitat that you're walking through as well.
I don't think guide's the right word, given it's a track.
Like
a helper. Okay, guys, the next bit, just keep going on the track.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think, and if you've walked around the world, there's a different sort of sense about guides in tracks and trails around the world. And Australians seem to have this sort of different sort of mentality about taking guides. So definitely this is a walk you can do without a guide. Like, it's really well laid out. There's a lot of information on the park's website for that. But I think the benefit of taking a guide for this would be, unless you want to carry, or it's great with apps these days, you can get a lot of interp on your phone for your flora and fauna. but someone who can explain, maybe not only just the history that we can see, but, some of the traditional owner history of the area and the heritage and some of that flora. It tell you about things like there's this beetle that's causing dieback in the snow gums. So they might be able to talk to you about all that kind of stuff. So you're sort of getting a different layer. So certainly, like you say, it's like keep walking on the track. You're absolutely right in that. And also just to have someone to do all those logistics. But if it's me, I reckon, I definitely would be doing this with my mates, a couple of friends, and organising it myself.
Yeah, and for some of it, like if you're getting your bags from Charlotte's Pass to Perisher, that's 15 minutes. Just drive them down there in the morning, and ditto Perisher to Bullocks Flat, is that what it's called?
Bullocks Flat, yep.
So that bit's easy. The Thredbo to Charlotte's Pass is a bit trickier. But look, that sounds wonderful. A lot of people are excited about it, texting in. So thanks so much, Caro.
No worries, James. I hope to see you down there on the track over Christmas.
I really want to. That's I hope I do. Caro Ryan, Outdoors Advocate, seasoned bushwalker. You're on ABC Radio Sydney. James O'Loughlin with you. We're coming up to the news.